What's up, everybody? Listen, welcome to the Shaping Your New Start Education podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Phil 2, and I'm so glad that you have joined in. Listen, we'd love for you to like, share, and subscribe this video, this interview, because we have a powerful guest coming on in just a minute. But we have a word from our sponsors. So everybody, listen, we want you to go ahead to drphil2.com. We want you to we want you to go get the ebook. We've got an ebook, everybody. This is 6 ways to shape your new start. 6 ways to shape your new start, a guide for educators and students. So this is a free, get this, it's a free download. All you need to do is go to drphil2.com/ebook. This book is yours. This comes out of an experience of needing a new start. We believe that everyone needs a new start. Also, we Need More Clouds, written by Lynette Wesley. You need to get this book. Listen, this is the season. This is that Christmas season. Every school, every parent needs to have this book, everybody. So listen, all you need to do is go to weneedmoreclouds.com. weneedmoreclouds.com. Get your book right here. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go into a brief commercial on this book, and then we're going to go into our intro and then our guests. So check it out, everybody. We Need More Clouds. All right, everybody. We want to welcome, listen, we got a very powerful special guest here today, Principal in the ATL. Please, everybody, welcome Captain Principal Hud-Kirk. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Great to have you on this program. Thank you so much for agreeing to be on here.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Absolutely. So listen, as we talk about education on this podcast, is everything and anything education. What really drove you to education in these times and in these days?
I come from a family of educators, and that was the main thing that really sparked my interest in going to education. My parents obviously really emphasized the importance of education throughout our childhood, and the importance of continuing our education so that we can give back to our community. So coming from parents who were very active in the civil rights movement growing up, and also having a father who was a college professor at the college that I attended, Tuskegee University. At the time when I started attending, it was really important, and not just for my parents, but the village, our our aunts, our uncles, our grandparents. So that was something that was instilled in us a long time ago from the womb.
Wow, that's powerful. So now this has been something you've been doing for a while, and now it's led you to a passion. What was your journey to become principal and going from being a teacher to principal? What was that journey like?
When I first started in education, when I graduated from Tuskegee University, I felt as though I still needed something to really impact all of my students that would be before me. And so I decided to attend Auburn University, where I received my master's degree in special education, learning disabilities. And from there, I started teaching. I taught for 3 years in Alabama and then moved to Texas with my husband in Austin, Texas area. And during that time also realized that I always wanted to teach at the collegiate level. And so when I went back to school at the University of Texas at Austin, I actually got my leadership because I felt like I wanted to have more impact for my students. So having being taught in general education settings and special education settings, and mostly in urban school settings and rural, and in schools that had low socioeconomic statuses, I knew that I wanted to have greater impact in those communities. And at the time, I was working in communities that did not have a lot of educators that looked like me. And so that was also important. So I felt as though if I can be in the role of leadership, then I could impact the hiring practices, for example, that and I can control some of those hiring practices and bring those individuals into schools that looked mostly like our Black and brown children.
Wow, wow. That's a great impact, and it's definitely necessary. So I'm glad you got the calling. I'm glad you are making the impact. Where in Alabama did you teach?
I actually taught in Lee County Public Schools, which is right outside of Auburn, Alabama, and Opelika, Alabama. And then I taught 3 years in Austin, Texas. And then
Okay.
when I moved back here, I'm now in Clayton County Public Schools.
Wow, wow. So you've been touring the South a little bit, Southwest,
Yes,
South.
yes, absolutely.
That's
I've been touring a
awesome.
lot. Yeah, yeah. And even in rural areas, like I said, Auburn, Opelika areas are rural. And then in Taylor, Texas, where I became when I started my leadership roles, that is considered a rural area as well, outside of Austin area. So, again, most of my journey in being an educator, it was very few of us that were in the schools, and I just wanted to have greater impact in that.
Absolutely. Well, listen, we want to talk about the impact you're making because there's a book. There's a book out there. And guess what? It's an Amazon bestseller book, Leading
Absolutely.
with Balance. Everybody, we want you to go check it out on Amazon bestseller. Check this book out. You don't want to miss what is in this book, but we're going to talk about that in this interview. Tell us a little bit about the inspiration behind the book and also the theme, because we see also you have the shirt Leading with Balance. And so balance is a key word for any leader. But what is your inspiration?
It really started prior to the pandemic. Those individuals that you see on that book, and there was a couple more principals. They're all principals, and we used to meet for lunch after our principal meetings. And one day, I posed the question: what if we wrote our own book? Because what I found was there were a lot of leadership books out there, but they were mostly written by white males, and then there were some that are upcoming, but they were mostly written or coming out more of Caucasian females. And I didn't see a lot of leadership books that were written by us that looked like us, especially for females. And so I posed a question. We were like, oh yeah, we'll kind of do it. And kind of went on from there. But then the pandemic hit,
Yes.
and we were at home, and we were running organizations from our home, as we were also supporting our own families and our own children. And so a lot of times I felt as though, we were spending so much time trying to support our families, our students, our teachers, but the leaders really weren't being talked about. If you really looked at the conversations in social media, on the news, educators, you can make some assumptions that when they talk about educators, that we're talking about principals, assistant principals, and teachers. But the reality was, as principals, we were carrying whole organizations, whole communities from our homes. And that could be overtaxing. That could be overwhelming, especially because some of us experience deaths in our communities, in our own schools. And one of the things that was really challenging for me, because I'm such a hands-on leader, is not being able to see my staff and my students as they came into the building, and to kind of monitor that demeanor and how they're doing and be able to touch base. I had to rely on a screen. And so, as that fall of 20, as we decided as a district to stay virtual, the challenge was not only trying to still educate our children who were lacking some of those resources that we were trying to get them, right? Because we weren't prepared for virtual learning. It was also supporting our staff who internally they were struggling. Some of them were
Yes.
struggling with maintaining that balance for trying to teach my class, but then also trying to take care of my family, and then also taking care of myself. And so for me particularly, we experienced a couple of deaths on our campus during that time, and I just came overwhelmed. And so we were at home, and I went back to the ladies, again. I said, hey, we're at home right now. This is the best time for us to write a book. Let's just go ahead and do it. We have flexible time. We're not in the building per se. So let's just write that book. And so that December we had the conversation, and by January we were beginning to write our first chapters, and wrote it in about 3 months. And we just kept meeting and talking with each other, and really fleshing out what message do we really want to give? Who's our avatar? Who's our community? Who are we speaking to? And what do we want to relay? Because we all had various different experiences with the pandemic. And it wasn't just about the pandemic, it was just about our journey in general, specifically as African American women in leadership, and moving our journey, and how that impacted not just our school communities, but also our families. In the book, some individuals talk about going through divorces, and I talk about having a miscarriage. Just different things that we talk
Wow.
about that sometimes is not really talked about,
That's right.
that we kind of hide for ourselves because we're so busy really taking care of the others around us, and we don't want to impose the things that we're going through on other people, because we're the leaders, right?
Yeah,
We're supposed to be leading everyone else. We're not
absolutely.
supposed to be breaking down like everybody else. So that was something that we used as a release to kind of really share with other women, and really men as well, who are struggling through in silence, and getting them to understand that it's really not lonely at the top. It's only because we've created that loneliness. And so
That's right.
we wanted to create a blueprint, if you will, of showing other leaders, specifically women from diverse backgrounds, of how they can also lead with balance.
Wow, that's powerful. And everybody, you can visit her website, principalcaptainkirk.com, and really see what she's about. You can follow her. Well, this is the email. All right. You can email her, but you can also follow her at Principal Captain Kirk. So we want you to follow her online. And she has some wonderful content, which is how I found you.
Awesome.
And I'm happy to have had you right here on the Shaping Your New Start Education podcast. What is one way? What is the first way that we can start to lead with balance? What is one of your advice?
It's a really interesting question, because it's kind of changed. And depending on who you talk to, it really is a personal question, right? When I am working with a client, for example, one of the first things that I do is get them to really identify, who are you? I had a conversation with a client recently, and one of the challenges that I identified with her was the fact that she didn't see herself separate from being an educator, right? Because that's what we do. We pour everything we do into our work. And she's had lost who she was as that person. So who am
Wow.
I as Jamilah? Not Principal Captain Kirk, not mom, not wife, not sister, not daughter, but who am I? And so
That's right.
one of the first things I think people really have to do is really dig deep and really identify, like, who are you? Like, write, if you were to write a love letter to yourself, what would you say to yourself about where you want to be, who you want to be, what impact you want to have? And so that can be sometimes a little scary, because you'll look up the things that I used to enjoy doing, or the things that really made me, that impacted my passion or my purpose. I might find that I'm out of step with that. And
Yes.
so you have to really go back to identify who you are, separate from the labels, the principal. It's like, the new, you walk into school and my children are like, you got on Nikes, you got on sneakers. And, me showing up as my authentic self, because for
Yeah.
years I would only wear heels, right?
Right.
And dress pants. And if I wore jeans, it would have to be a jacket with it. And then I said, am I really showing my students who I am, who I truly am? And so I had to really dig deep and get to the core of, who I wanted to show up as, which was my authentic self. So that would be
Wow.
the first thing I would say. Really do a self inventory about who you are, outside of the labels.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely important. And what do we call that in social and emotional learning? Self-awareness, right?
Self awareness.
having
Absolutely.
having that self-awareness. If you have that self-awareness, self-management, all of that ties in to that social and emotional learning. So who are
Absolutely.
you? That's a
Yep.
critical point. What is another way that we can start to lead with balance?
So one of the things that I had to go back and do was identify what filled my cup. Like, what is
Mm,
self-care to me? So for me, self-care might be just walking in the park. For someone else,
yes.
it might be getting a mani and pedi every week. For someone
Hmm.
else, it might be going shopping. But whatever that may, for someone else, it might be running. But whatever that self-care is, what that fulfills you, you have to kind of identify what that means and what that looks like for you.
That's right.
And what I found was that I had gotten away from the things that fulfilled me because, again, as a nurturer, as a leader, you're pouring into other people, and it's almost like do as I say, not as I do. And I
Yep.
realized that I was telling people what they should be doing, but I wasn't exercising it for myself. I wasn't
Yes.
giving myself
Yes.
permission or grace to just indulge in self-care and identify what that really looked like. And so things that I used to do that really brought joy to me, I gotten away from. So what
Yeah.
brings you joy? What self-care brings you joy and really, gets you in a high vibration,
Yes.
And so I think that's really important as well.
And I think, through this pandemic, we've had to learn what is self-care. We talked about it a lot. I've even done professional development on self-care, right?
Yes.
And finding that space, finding that peaceful place that you can rejuvenate, reset, restart.
Hmm.
And that's really, the method of shaping a new start is that knowing how to really pour into yourself. You can pour into so
Sure.
many other people, but what are you doing to pour into yourself? So I think
Right.
that's a critical point.
Absolutely. Because you can't pour from an empty cup.
That's right.
And the reality is, as much as I love my job, if I were to fall out today, there'll be someone in my place tomorrow. I mean, it's just the
Yes.
reality because the schools still have to run, the children still have to learn, and the school, community still have to be supported. And so, what I also found was that because I was pouring so much into my work that I was sometimes neglecting my own family, right? Because I'm at all these events for my school, I'm doing a lot for my school, and then when my own children have
Yes.
things during the day, I can't go, right? Because I have
Yeah.
to tend to my school, and I had to shift that mindset because they were in my household and I wanted to set an example for my own children, my boys and my girls, of what self-care looks like. Because I realized, especially after I had my girl, the last one's the girl, I realized that she is watching me more than I realized. And so the
Wow.
more that I can model what self-care means and what that looks like, the better that she will be growing up. I don't want to wait until she becomes an adult to figure that out. She can
Yes.
find that out right now.
That's amazing. And sometimes you have to give yourself permission to be a family person and say, okay, the job is going to take a step back a little bit, but I need to pour into myself. I need to also pour into my family. So
Absolutely.
sometimes it's all about giving yourself permission to step back.
Yes. Yes. And then also surrounding yourself with individuals who will hold you accountable. Because
Yes.
it's easy for us to say that and to make these intentions but then not hold ourselves accountable. And so I'm just really fortunate and blessed. And it's okay to say to your staff or your front office staff or your assistant principal or principal, whomever's around you or friends and family, hold me accountable when I get home. if you see email pop up, text me. I'm like, get off the computer, you know? And so just being really clear about your intentions and what your goal is, and then having individuals around you who will hold you accountable. And those are typically people who really care about you and who love you. Because again, you know, we all need accountability partners. And so having what, Oprah calls your gallon sized individuals around you, people
Yes,
around you, makes a huge difference.
that's right. Absolutely. Wow. So, we'll throw that extra point in. Surround yourself with a positive, accountable community. You know,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
what's a third way we can really lead with balance?
So I actually mentioned it, but it's nothing big. The lead with, give yourself grace. Don't beat yourself up. Don't feel guilty about the fact that you didn't send that email. Don't feel guilty about the fact that you left work early. Don't feel guilty about taking a mental health day like everybody else
Yes.
does. Don't feel guilty about taking off to go spend time with your children at their school.
Yes.
Um, there were so many times where I felt guilty. Even if I was at home sick, I would call and like, is everything good? And what I had to learn was, listen, if you are an effective leader, it'll run itself. And what I learned after I wrote the book, it was released in that June. I was diagnosed with breast cancer that end of
Mm,
July, August of last year. And it was as if God was allowing me to get this book out because he knew that I had another journey to share with others so that I can
wow.
truly put into practice the things that I've been telling people to do.
Yes.
And that was the biggest wake up call for me as well. And so I realized that I'm always learning, I'm always growing, and there's always journeys in the wind or possibilities, opportunities for you to have impact on other people. So I had to learn to give myself grace. And so when I had to leave for family medical leave, for example, I was okay. Like I was okay. I was at a place where I knew my school, my community, my staff, my assistant principal, I was going to be okay. And I also had a community of other principals. Shout out to OSG, Off School Grounds, who were there to pick me up along with my family. So
Wow.
that's where the gallon size people come from. But giving myself grace and allowing myself to heal, and that's for anyone, whether it's physical, mental, spiritually, giving yourself grace and space to do that work because your community needs you. And so that was something that I had to learn was being unapologetic about saying no sometimes, or just saying I can't do, or even saying I don't feel like it, or I'm frustrated,
Yeah.
being really okay with expressing my own feelings about things. And that's what worked for me.
Wow. Wow. For sure. For sure. Yeah, we giving a shout out, OSG family. So,
Yes.
everybody, listen, we want you to go to Amazon. We want you to get this book, Leading with Balance. This is a powerful concept. Coming out of the pandemic, going through stuff, whatever you've gone through, this is a book that's going to help you get your balance, and that's critical in
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
Finding that balance, finding that hustle in that work ethic,
Yeah.
but yet knowing when to step back.
Yeah.
You know,
And Dr.
knowing.
Phil, let me say
Mhm.
this because shout out to Dr. Dennis McKeezy, founder CEO of OSG. We had a conversation this fall actually, and he wanted to get clarity on what I mean by balance. And I think sometimes people think of balance as being this equilibrium, right? This equal. I want everything to be equal, and that's not what we meant at all by being balanced. What we meant is prioritizing the things that are important,
Mhm.
right? Prioritizing. So it doesn't mean that everything is going, you can't do everything. So that's number one. You
Right.
can't do everything or you'll be good at nothing, right? So it's about prioritizing and when to know to prioritize certain things. So, but that goes back to self-awareness. So once you're self-aware about who you are, what your needs are, then you're able to prioritize. So what might be a priority for me during this week or this month might be a different priority the next week or the next month. And I think that's what's really important and people have to really grasp is we're not saying that everything is equal. What we're saying is prioritizing what's important for you. So I wanted to make that point really clear.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, and shout out to Gary Graham, school counselor as well, and mental health counselor, all of that. And listen, we're all encouraging people to find your balance because, again, you when you're a leader and you're pouring into others, you have to find that balance. That same balance, you're encouraging people. I found it funny, that people will tell you, you need to get your rest, and then they're hustling and not getting their rest. It's
Exactly.
like, come on, come on. You telling me this, or they'll tell you, hey, you need to get some rest, and they'll be like, but can you do this one more thing? And so,
Yep.
like, I thought you said
Absolutely.
I needed rest.
Right. And the aha for me was I would, because I'm a mom, I'm a wife, so I would wait till the middle of the night to send out my emails from work because I
Yes,
wanted to focus on the family. What I didn't realize though is that some staff members have their emails on their phone, right? And so it would ding. And that was a heighten of anxiety for some people. So I had to stop sending emails middle of the night. I'm thinking it's working for me because everything's out the way. But
sure,
I had to be really mindful, going back to doing as I say, not as I do. I had to be really mindful of what the practices that I was currently engaged in,
right.
how that might have been impacting others and keeping them from being balanced as well.
Hmm.
Because I was that, especially as a new principal, my phone would ding because we were expected to keep our phones by us, and which we still are. But I, when it would ding in the middle of the night, I'm picking it up. I'm picking it up because I'm like, who's texting me? Who's emailing me?
Right.
Until I got wiser and I was like, you know what? The silence button is okay. When I
That's
see it in the
right.
morning, I'll check it. But I wasn't like that for the longest though, and I had to learn those boundaries for myself.
I'm constantly in places where it's just a public place. It's going to disturb. So my phone is constantly on silent, constantly. And I might get a buzz. I might, hear the phone ring. Or I might not. It might go straight to voicemail.
Right, what a
But it's only
voicemail.
because for that moment, I'm trying to protect my peace. And
Absolutely.
I'm going to check the phone anyway because that's just a habit. Let me check. Oh, okay. I see somebody just called. I see I missed a call. People say, hey, did you get my message? No, I call right back as soon as I see I miss it. You're better off texting me.
Yes.
That voicemail stuff has gone way
I
out of the
know, I
window.
know. I know. And we got to get up with the times because some of us old heads are like, no, you have to call and we
Right.
have to get with the times that text is okay.
That's right. So how many years have you been in education?
I've been in education 27 years.
Wow.
And this is my 13th or 14th, they run together, year as a principal at the same school. And I did 5 years as an assistant principal. So
That's
I've been in the
amazing.
game for a minute. Yeah.
What
Yeah.
Just give us one more thing. What have you found most effective in your 13 years leading your school?
Building relationships, focusing on culture and climate.
Yes.
If people want to be at work, they typically will work hard for you, right? If you make it a place that's inviting, that it's a positive environment, they get something out of it, not just professionally, but personally, that you build relationships with those individuals, they will stay. And so I've learned that when we have a strong culture and climate and a positive culture and climate and relationships, we can withstand anything. Um, and so that has been my main focus, especially the last probably 7 years, 5 to 7 years or so, because I realized that we know we have newcomers coming in, we have new teachers coming in.
Yes.
There's generational gaps,
Hmm.
which means there's also different, whether you're going to millennials, Gen Zs, whatever you want to call them, everyone brings something different to the table. And so really highlighting those and really uplifting the differences that we have, and
Yes.
then allowing space for those individuals to really show up as their authentic selves. And so, having fun, joy. I'm not a micromanager. I believe that as professionals, as adults, we should be able to self-manage ourselves, but I also like to have fun. So
Yeah.
you might see me run through the hallway with the kids. You might see me, dancing at the Bear Paw assemblies. You might hear me on the, playing car wash, so the teachers can leave early on a Friday.
Right.
I just want them to, because they spend a lot of time with us. We spend a lot of time with it, sometimes more than we do with our own families. And so I wanted to be a space that when you come in, you it's a safe space, and
Yes.
it's a space that feels like a family. And
Yeah.
I think that has been a key to me having longevity as well in the same school for so many years, because we've had a couple of shakeups, since I've
Mhm.
been a principal in my district. And so
Yes.
to still be there, I think, when I think about it, it means a lot and it says a lot.
Wow. Well, listen, we wish you nothing but the best, and we're not going to hold you up from spending time with your family. I appreciate you've taken the time to be on this podcast. Listen, everybody, this is Principal Captain Kirk. Everybody, go check out the book, Leading with Balance. Leading with Balance. Again, you can follow her. You can follow her on Instagram or Twitter, Principal Captain Kirk. You can put in the same thing for Facebook and you will find her. You can go to her website, principalcaptainkirk.com. All right. So listen, that's where you find her. And once again, we thank you for being a part of this podcast. Just stay on for just a little bit.
Gotcha.
Everybody, we want to go back to our sponsors. Our sponsor is We Need More Clouds. We Need More Clouds. You need to get this book. This is on Amazon, also a bestseller on Amazon. We Need More Clouds. It is a book about blended families. So you need to go check out this book. Also, there's a free ebook, everybody. I've written this book just for you to get your new start. 6 ways to shape your new start. So go check that out. You can go to drphil2.com/ebook, drphil2.com/ebook. Want to thank everybody who has tuned in, made a comment. We have some people checking you out, giving
Hey,
a
Uncle
shout
Louis.
out. Yeah, there you go. There you go. What's up? What's up? All right. Thanks so much. And everybody, we'd
Hey,
love for
Uncle
you to
Ray.
subscribe to this channel. We love for you to subscribe to this channel. Share this interview with somebody. Share it with your network. Also, you can follow me on at Dr. Phil 2 _2. And we are there. And you'll find content from Dr. Phil 2. So follow us there. All right, everybody. Listen, we wish you well. Principal Kirk, I'll talk to you in just a minute.
All
And
right.
everybody, have a great week. Be productive. This is Shaping Your New Start Education Podcast, where we talk everything and anything education. We're just letting the shout outs go through. Come on, bring the shout outs. All right. Peace and love, everybody.